Here, Stella, we're all ready to go. Okay, Stella, let's go.
Stella, Splash, Simba, Boo, Sammy, Richard, Nancy, Goldie, Ziggy, Ringo, Eva, Hydrox, and Ditto, the Lucky Ferals.
It is 8:06 a.m. and here's Nancy. She's hanging out underneath this end table. So last night she decided she wanted to come upstairs around midnight. That's when I was pretty much shutting down the house and getting ready for bed. I thought she would just stay upstairs for a few minutes, looking out of the windows in Boo's room, because that's why she likes coming upstairs, to look out the windows and watch anything that's going on in the patio. But she decided she's going to spend all night upstairs. Thankfully, I was able to get a good night's sleep. Thankfully, I did not hear any cat fights or anything like that. This morning, when I woke up, I heard Stella drinking water. Then she jumped on my bed, and I gave Stella some pets. She's definitely not herself because I tried giving her like a squeeze up and a churu, and she did not want to eat those. Another thing that I noticed is Nancy was following Stella around, like not in a malicious way, almost like Nancy's concerned about Stella. So like when Stella walked into my bedroom, Nancy followed her. When Stella walked out of my bedroom, Nancy followed her, but she kept a respectable distance. Like she kept like 10 feet away from Stella, and she wasn't being nasty or anything like that. She was just like kind of observing Stella, and Stella would just sit there and like look at her. But I don't want Stella to be stressed out. And so what I did this morning is, hello, Boo. Here's Splash. What I did this morning is I gave Stella some food. I gave her some of her leftover food from dinner last night. Stella ate about an ounce of food for dinner last night. They had some steamed scallops mixed in with their homemade raw food. So I put her leftovers in the refrigerator, and I gave her those today. I don't know if she took a few bites of those. I also gave her a seafood Sheba. She ate some of that yesterday, so I thought maybe she'd like that today. And I put her in Boo's room so she could just like relax. I put that music for Cat CD on for her. I also gave her a mouse game on the iPad. Here's Stella with the iPad and the mouse game. And I've been hearing it squeak, but I thought it only made noise when a cat was like hitting it. So I was like, oh, Stella's playing her game. No, she's not. Come on, Stella, let's hit this. Come on. Let's play, Stella. How do we stop this? Stella does not want to eat any food. I tried giving her another churu. She doesn't want it. Like she's just completely staying away from it. So I'm waiting for the vet's office to open. Then I'm going to give them a call, and depending on what they say, I'm either going to wait for an appointment there, and I'm even thinking of bringing her to the emergency room. Like if she doesn't eat more, I might bring her to the emergency room. I don't think it's good for a cat not to eat for several days in a row. Like she's been eating tiny amounts of food. Like yesterday she had a tiny amount of food, and she had an ounce at dinner, which would be like one Sheba Perfect portion. But she needs to be eating more than she's eating. You all right, Stella? The problem with the emergency room is what they'll do is they'll run tests on her and they'll tell me any test results, but then they will tell me we'll follow up with the vet. The other thing I don't like about the emergency room is they might give her something that the vet that she goes to would not give her, meaning different types of medicine, different remedies than like an emergency room would. Some of what they use is the same, but some of what they use is different. Some of the protocols are different. Like when Boo had his dermatitis, I was trying to avoid a trip to the vet because he's FIV positive, and the typical method of treatment for dermatitis is with some kind of steroids. And so that's why I was trying to avoid it. But when I ended up taking him to the vet, the holistic vet was like, yeah, we don't use steroids, so we use this instead. So that's why I'd rather take Stella to her regular vet versus the emergency room. Right, Stella? So if I could get her to eat something today, that would be good. But I just don't want to see like her condition getting worse. She's walking around, so it's not like she's hiding, but she's not her normal self at all. She doesn't want to play. She doesn't want to eat. So we'll just have to see. It is 11:37 a.m. and this is what's going on in Boo's room with Stella. Here's Stella. So I finally heard back from the vet's office and they can take her at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So that's what we're going to do. Hopefully she'll eat a little bit more food. Here we have some raw ground chicken. She didn't want to eat it. Here we have some leftover food from yesterday, which is the scallops with the homemade raw chicken. She didn't want to eat it, but Boo came in and ate most of it. This is more of the leftover food from yesterday that I mixed some warm water into it. I made like a soup for her. She didn't want to eat it. This is her Nature's Variety Instinct Raw Bites that she likes. I warmed these up for her. She didn't want to eat it. This is one of the Delectables broths. I believe it's chicken and tuna. She didn't want to eat it. This is a seafood Sheba Perfect Portions. She didn't want to eat it. And this is a Fancy Feast classic pate. I believe this is turkey and giblets. She actually took like 3 bites of this. So that is very promising. I might end up going out and buying some more Fancy Feast, like a bunch of different flavors, because if she takes a few bites, that's good. Or I might try to syringe feed her, maybe one of those Churu Complete meal toppers, because then at least she'll get some vitamins and minerals and a little bit of food into her. I think that's like 12 calories. But that's what's going on here. So the other cats had their breakfast. It was a beef blend, homemade raw food. And I've already cleaned up their dishes. Ox had breakfast this morning. I gave him some food. I put some bird seed out for the birds. And so that's good. You okay, Stella? You okay, Stella? It is 7:30 p.m. and here's Stella. And Stella did not want to eat her dinner. She would not eat any of the food that I tried to give her. I went to Petco this afternoon. I bought her different varieties of Fancy Feast. I bought her some of her favorite Friskies. I bought a few other brands of food that I thought she might like. She won't touch any of it. And she's like moving around in slow motion. And I don't like it. I don't like how she's acting. So what I'd like to do right now is take her to the emergency room. We have an appointment with the vet at 9 a.m. tomorrow. But if we go to the vet tomorrow and he takes blood for another blood test, they don't get the results until the next day. But if I go to the emergency room tonight, they'll do a blood test and they'll get the results tonight. Like usually when you go to the emergency room, the results are immediate. So that's what I would like to do. I'd like to take her to the emergency room so she could get checked out. And then hopefully everything will be okay so she could go to the vet tomorrow. But if for some reason everything is not okay, then they can treat her tonight. Right, Stella? And at the emergency room, I think they have more like equipment and more things that they could do versus the vet's office. So that's why I'd like to do that. Plus, I don't think I'm going to really get a good night's sleep right now if I'm just like waiting to see what's going on with Stella. I know it's going to cost me a lot of money to take her to the emergency room today, but I think I would just rather do that for the peace of mind versus having to wait until the day after tomorrow to see like what's going on. So I don't want to take any chances. I know she's not going to want to go in the carrier. She's not going to want to go in the car, but I just want to get this over with. What I'd like to do is first get her into the carrier, and then once she's in the carrier, I'm going to call the emergency room and give them a heads up to let them know we're coming, because that's what I did with Boo. The last time Stella was at the emergency room was July of 2021, so that's the same one that we are going to. At that time, they did like blood work and x-rays and like a few other tests, and everything came to like $1,200. So when Boo went there, it was like $1,500. So we'll just see what it is today. It might be even more. Here's Stella. We're all ready to go. Okay, Stella, let's go. Here's Boo. And I just got back from the animal hospital. And Stella is staying there. She's now a patient. So we got there and they took her vital signs and everything was normal. And then they gave her an exam and everything seemed to be okay during the exam. And then they did a blood test and her blood sugar was normal. They said it was around 200 which, it's a little bit high, but it's normal. And I think they said her liver enzymes might have been a little high. But what happened next was then they tested for her ketones, and they tested her ketone level. And it was like off the charts. Like it was super, super high. So they diagnosed her with diabetic ketoacidosis. And that would explain why she wasn't feeling well and she wasn't eating. And diabetic ketoacidosis is very serious. So the choices were to have her treated. And what they do is they give her fluids and electrolytes, and they try to flush the acids out of her system and try to get her eating again. And the other option was putting her down, and I was not going to do that, right, Boo? We're not going to do that. So she's going to be there. It could be up to 3 days. I don't even know if it's going to be more than 3 days, but thankfully I brought her in the round carrier that had a cat bed in it. So I left her there with her little round cat bed, and they put her in like a little, it's kind of like a cage, kind of, not very big, but at least she has her bed, her round bed. And they also put like, a bunch of like mats and towels and stuff on the bottom of it. So it is very comfortable for her. They give her a little litter box, although it does have pellet litter. She's not a big fan of that, but if she has to use it, I'm sure she'll use it. And I asked them if they could hang a towel over like part of the front of the cage, so that, she could just relax more. So she doesn't feel like she's so exposed. So they did that, and I could go and visit her anytime I want. I could call them anytime, and they said they're going to take her vitals like every hour, and they'll be constantly checking on her. So that's good. What wasn't so good is the cost. So it averages about $10,000. That's a lot of money. So I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping that Stella can get through this. They did say that once she gets through it, though, then she would require insulin. Like, she would be then a diabetic and require insulin probably twice a day. So, we'll get to that when we get to that. Right now, we just have to get her through the current situation that she's in. And I'm going to have to call the vet tomorrow and let them know that she's been hospitalized. So, like, I won't be there for the appointment. And then I do want to follow up with him, maybe talk to him about, like, what's going on there. So I am very happy that I took her to the emergency room tonight, because I don't think we could have waited another 2 days or even more. And so it's really good that we got the blood test today and we got the ketones tested today, because if we would have went to the vet tomorrow, he would not have gotten the lab results until the day after. And then, I don't know, I would have had to take Stella to, I don't even know what hospital, because I don't think I don't think the vet's office even does that kind of stuff. So I'm just really happy that I decided to take her in today. Since Boo, had been fussy with his food just a few months ago, I thought it might be something similar to that. But it wasn't. So we are just going to do the best we could do, right, Boo? We're going to do the best we could do for Stella, and we're going to send her lots of positive thoughts and healing energy, and hopefully everything will be fine, right, Boo? Right, Boo? It is 11:47 p.m. and here's Simba. He's relaxing in this cat tower. I spoke to the animal hospital maybe 20 minutes ago. I gave them a call because I just wanted to check on Stella before I go to sleep. And they said she's doing good. She's getting her fluids. And then they said she would eventually start getting like an insulin drip. And then they're going to do an ultrasound on her liver early in the morning. But they said everything's going okay so far. There's a very strange feeling in the house. It's like an eerie feeling. I've talked to Simba, Splash, and Boo and everyone else, and I've let them know that, Stella's in the hospital right now. She should be home in a few days. But it just feels so weird in the house because this is the first time that any of the cats have left the house and then have not come home the same day. Even when the Lucky Seven were spayed and neutered, they left in the morning, they came back in the same day. So none of the cats have ever had to stay overnight at a hospital before. So it's really weird. So that's why I talked to Simba, Splash, and Boo, and I told them what was going on. Because they're all wondering. They're like, where's Stella? Where's Stella? Now, the Lucky Seven are nervous because they saw me leave with Stella in the carrier and then come back without her. So it feels really strange right now in the house. And I hope I get some sleep because I'm really tired, but I don't know. It's weird. It's nerve-wracking. Right, Simba? You okay? It's 8:30 a.m. Here's Simba. And this is one of Stella's blankets. And I just rubbed Simba with the blanket. I rubbed Boo with the blanket. I want to see if I can rub Splash with this blanket because I would like to bring this to the animal hospital today and leave it with Stella. So I talked to the vet at the animal hospital. The vets there, they change shifts several times a day. So this is, I guess she just started her shift this morning. And I spoke to her about Stella. Here's Boo. And she told me that Stella has been getting her fluids and they started the electrolytes. And when they administer the electrolytes, then it kind of puts things out of whack for a while. I mean, she explained it in better words than that, but it's early and I didn't get much sleep. And, I'm just trying to remember what she said. So she said she expects those to stabilize within a few hours. They also started some insulin and that she's going to call our vet and, talk to the vet about, what he wants to do, which type of insulin he wants to prescribe for her and stuff like that. And I told her I was just about to call the vet after I spoke to her. I just wanted to speak to her first. So what she told me is that, Stella, she's not out of the woods yet, but she's where she's supposed to be. In the progression of things, she's where she should be as far as, progressing in a better direction. It's not something that I expect them to be able to correct immediately because it's not something that happens immediately. It's something that happens over time. So it does take time to correct. And she says sometimes, it takes a full day on insulin before they start seeing more normal levels of things. So that's where that stands. Here's Splash. And then I did call the vet's office because we have a 9:00 appointment today, and I spoke to the receptionist and I explained the situation to the receptionist. I told her that Stella would not be coming in because she was hospitalized last night and that the animal hospital would be calling the doctor today, and she said she's going to reach out to the animal hospital. And I also asked her to have the vet reach out to me so we could touch base on things. So that's where that stands. The emergency room animal hospital did ask me if I was going to be coming by to see Stella today. So I'm hoping to go by twice today. Hopefully sometime earlier this morning, maybe after I get all the cats fed and situated, and then later this evening to check on her again. And I'm thinking, they said she's not eating yet. So I'm thinking maybe I need to bring some of her favorite foods with me. I have to see. I was thinking, does Stella have a favorite toy? I don't know. I know she likes wormy toys, but she's in a little cage, so it's not like she's going to be jumping around or anything. And she doesn't really have any of the cuddly type toys that she likes to play with. That's why I thought I would get her, the blanket. But I'm going to look around. She does like some of the kickers, but I don't think I should be giving her a catnip toy. I don't want to give her anything with catnip in it while she's there. But she does love those Instinct Raw Bites, so I was thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to defrost some of those, put them in a plastic container, maybe she'll eat those, or maybe they will let me give those to her. I'm also going to probably bring some squeeze-ups and chewaroos, see if she likes those, and some of like the Shibas that she likes. Maybe I'll just bring a bag of foods to leave there, because I don't know what they're feeding her, and she can be very fussy. So I think it's better to give her something that she actually likes. Meanwhile, it's like strangely quiet in the house. It's like really weird. Good morning, Sammy. I'm downstairs with the Lucky 7. I just put a load of wash in the washing machine. And I still feel like they're freaked out because they're not as noisy and lively as they usually are. I think they're worried about Stella because she left the house and she didn't come back. So Stella became a full-time indoor cat at the very end of December in 2016. So Stella has been living in this house for 8 years. And during that time, she has only left to go to the vet. And then she comes back the same day. But now she left and she didn't come back yet. What's going on, Nancy? Where's Stella? Even Nancy wasn't like making noise and trying to go upstairs or anything. You okay? You okay, guys? Stella's in the hospital, guys, okay? She's in the hospital. She'll be back. You okay? You all right, Sammy? Sammy, you okay? You okay, Ziggy? Hello, little Eva. Hello. Hello. Okay. So what I would like to do over the course of today, tomorrow, hopefully I'll get it done, is I really want to clean out Boo's room, just give it a good old, really a deep cleaning, and maybe move some stuff around in case Stella's going to be isolated for a little while until she feels better. And then I'm also going to do the same for my bedroom. I prefer to isolate a cat in Boo's room because it's a smaller room. There's less things for them to get into. It's just easier to, take care of a cat in that room. Also, it has the best windows. It has big windows for the room, and it gets plenty of sunlight, which is good. So that's why I like using Boo's room for that. It perfectly suits that purpose. But Stella doesn't always like being in that room, so that's why I'm thinking, what if I have to put her in my room instead? I would definitely try her first in Boo's room and see how that goes, and then if I have to, put her into my room. How you doing, Ziggy? How you doing, Nancy? So that's what I'm hoping on doing. I also need to clean and organize my kitchen. That's something that I've been meaning to do. Like, for some reason, I always accumulate stuff in the kitchen. It just ends up there. So I need to kind of go through it and either put it in boxes in my storage room or find places for it in the cabinets. I need to also go through the cabinets. You ever have cabinets that, I have a pantry cabinet that's pretty much all food and stuff. And for some reason that just accumulates also. I need to go through that and just get rid of anything that might be old or anything that I don't need anymore or stuff like that. How you doing, Sammy? You okay? So I am going to finish getting ready for my day. Got to make sure I eat some breakfast. And then I'm going to get all the cats fed. And then we'll try to keep everything as much as we can, like their usual routine. Right? But today for breakfast, everyone's having canned food. I hope they like it. Because I have so many open cans. That's what they had for a snack yesterday. The OG4 had some of the leftover food that I was trying to get Stella to eat, and the Lucky 7 did also. So that was good. And yeah, we're just taking everything one day at a time at this point, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time. And that's what's going on. This morning when I woke up, I was thinking about, like, what if I never found those round carriers? And what if I had brought Stella to the vet in one of those more rectangular carriers? She would not have had a cat bed in the carrier. And then I would have, like, left her there only on, like, a towel or the little pads or cushions or towels that the animal hospital had. Chances are I would have came home, maybe picked up a bed and brought it back there. But having the round carrier with the bed in it just made it so much easier and more comfortable for Stella. Even when we were waiting there, like when we were waiting for the test results and I would check on Stella in the carrier, she was just, happily relaxing in the cat bed in the carrier. So thank you so much, Sharon, for making those cat beds for us. But I'm just so thankful that I found those round carriers. And I don't know if I would have found them if Boo never had his tooth problem, because that's when I found them. When Boo was having his problem with his teeth, that's when I was shopping in Marshall's at the time. Like I would, drop him off and then, do some shopping. And that's when I found the carrier. And that's when I went to the other Marshalls and found another one. And then when he went for his dental procedure, that's when I found the third one. So we could thank Boo for the fact that we have those round carriers. And Stella is very comfortable in her little emergency room. And here's Richard. He's in his favorite cat bed in his favorite spot on this old chair. He's like, I'm not getting up yet. Here's Boo. There's something that I want to talk about with regards to cat care that is extremely important. And that is following your intuition with regards to your cats and their health. So what happened with Stella is that I kept feeling like something was not right with her, that there was something going on because she just did not, it just didn't feel right, And, she went to the vet in December, and she's been under observation since then. So the fact that she's been under observation maybe made that easier. In January, when she started, not eating as well as she normally eats, it made me think of what Boo went through a few months ago, which was the same thing. He didn't want to eat for a while. And we went through several weeks where, he wasn't eating the food he normally loved to eat, and he only wanted to eat certain foods, and I really had to put a lot of effort into getting him to eat the foods, and he just did not have his usual appetite for a few weeks, but eventually it came back. And now he's back to being, the same Boo that he was. He's back to his favorite foods and, he's back to eating well. So when Stella had a similar issue, that's what I thought it was going to be. I thought, she might have a very, fussy appetite for a week or two. And then, she would kind of get through it the same way that Boo got through it. But when that didn't happen, that's when I started feeling like, okay, well, something's not right here. And I remember thinking maybe it's related to the blood sugar issue with her last test. Although, with her last blood test in December, she did not have full-blown diabetes according to the test. The test showed a slightly elevated blood sugar level. It was just a little bit over 200. That's why she was under observation, and that's why she's been on low-carb foods. It wasn't extremely high or anything. But because of, her change of eating habits, that's why I was thinking, well, could it be related to that? So I started researching, and this is something that's very important also. You have to be on your cat's healthcare team. You can't just leave it up to the vets to take charge of 100% of their healthcare, because nobody knows your cat better than you do. And the vets are not going to know exactly what's going on as well as you do. The vets are going to help advise you. They're going to help with their knowledge and their tool set and their tests and, their experience. But only you are going to be able to truly know what's going on with your cat and how their behavior is changing, or how their eating habits are changing, or how their drinking habits are changing. So I noticed that Stella was drinking quite a bit more water over the past several days, and that's concerning. So I was researching potential issues regarding a cat with diabetes and appetite. And what I was finding was very concerning, because they said if a cat with diabetes doesn't eat, their ketone levels can rise, and that could result in diabetic ketoacidosis, which is what Stella had. Now, when she did not want to eat anything yesterday, that was extremely concerning. And when I saw her moving in slow motion, she wasn't acting like herself, that was very concerning. And that's why I made the decision to bring her to the emergency room, because I know that ketoacidosis needs to be dealt with very quickly. So hopefully she got there in time and she's getting the help that she needs. This is why I'm saying you have to trust your intuition. You can't just leave it up to the vet, because if I didn't trust my intuition, and if I would have just said, okay, well, I have a vet appointment tomorrow, we don't know, maybe that could have been too late. Do take it upon yourself to learn everything that you can about whatever condition that they have been diagnosed with. And when they get a blood test, make sure you go through all of the values on the blood test and try to even get a copy of it. So yesterday in the emergency room, when they told me that Stella's ketone levels were high and she would need to be, hospitalized and stay there, I had to specifically ask them about the rest of the values on her blood test. And that's when they told me, about maybe the liver issue being a little high. So always ask questions, always try to get as much information as you can. And when I was leaving the emergency room yesterday, I specifically asked for a printout of everything that was on the receipt, so I know exactly what they have planned. Even if you don't know exactly what they're talking about, because they might be referring to, issues you're not familiar with, or, just things you're not familiar with, it's always good to know what's going on. Don't turn a blind eye to it. Don't say, well, she's in the care of the vets and they know what they're doing. Yes, they obviously know what they're doing, but you have to educate yourself also on exactly what it is they're doing. And again, it's because you know your cat better than any vet will. It is 9:22 a.m. and I just got off the phone with the vet. I'm glad I talked to him because based on what I was telling him, he thinks Stella may be suffering from hepatic lipidosis, which is a situation that can occur, if a cat has not been eating enough, and if they're losing weight too fast, then it affects their liver, and it can happen to overweight cats because they tend to have more of a burden on their liver. And so he's going to call the animal hospital right away and talk to them about that, because he said it didn't make any sense that her blood sugar was normal. He said the blood sugar from yesterday's blood test was lower than it was, back in December. And that it seemed like something was not right. He said it didn't seem like it was a normal case of diabetes, because normally they always see elevated blood sugar. And why was her blood sugar actually lower, but the ketone levels higher? He said there has to be something else going on. And that's when I just explained everything that was going on to him, all of my observations over the past several months. And that's when he said, oh, we could be dealing with, hepatic lipidosis here. So I'm hoping for the best. I am concerned that, she's not eating. Maybe they'll give her a feeding tube. That's what he said that they would normally have to do. They would normally have to administer a feeding tube. So hopefully they could, get her stable, and then we could go from there. Right, Boo? It's 12 p.m. and here's Nancy. She's hanging out in this cat tower in the living room. And I am just doing anything I can to keep busy. I need to sit down at my desk and actually get work done. But I don't want to do that. I just want to keep moving because I'm just like a ball of stress right now. I can feel it like in the pit of my stomach, in my solar plexus area. And I've been drinking water like crazy. I have like a dry mouth. I've been drinking coconut water, juice. I also ate half of a banana, but I'm not hungry. But I don't want to force myself to eat anything, but I know I need to eat something. I'm hoping that everything is going well with Stella and that she is responding in a good way to the feeding tube and the additional electrolytes that they are injecting into her. So, I mean, it's completely out of my hands. There's nothing I could do. Although sometimes with this one, I do wonder about their experience levels because they do tend to have younger vets there. Although, like last night, there was an older vet on duty. But just because someone's an older vet doesn't necessarily mean that they have better knowledge, but they usually do have more experience, which is why I'm very thankful for the vet that the cats go to. Hopefully, it is his experience that is helping Stella today, and hopefully the feeding tube will help her, and hopefully she could get stronger and stabilized and can come home in a few days. Right, Nancy? So that's what's going on. I've just been doing laundry and cleaning up around the house and taking the rest of the Christmas decorations down and putting up like spring decorations and just trying to keep moving because if I don't like how I feel if I just sit down. I was thinking of going outside and actually scrubbing litter boxes, but it's too cold. It's only like 45 degrees, although it is sunny, and I don't need to make myself sick right now. Like, dealing with all this stress, I don't need to be out there making myself potentially sick. So I just need to stay healthy and just, stick to our daily routine the best that we can. Another thing that's super helpful in times of stress are these Bach Rescue Remedy lozenges. It says natural stress relief on them. And I took one of these yesterday before taking Stella to the animal hospital. I took one of these while I was at the animal hospital. I took one of these after I got home from the animal hospital. I took one of these before I went to bed. I took one of these this morning, and I'm going to take another one right now. They come in different flavors. These are black currant flavors, and they're almost like a cough drop. See what they look like? Yeah, you just suck on them, and I swear they really work so good. They definitely take the edge off stress. They definitely help relax you. They don't do it like a pharmaceutical drug would do it. They do it in a very subtle way. Sometimes you don't even notice it, but it does make a difference. Like there's definitely a difference before you take these and then after you take these. So I'm just going to take another one of these. It's 12:27 p.m. Here at Ziggy. She's eating some of this cat grass. Now, I did plant some fresh cat grass yesterday, so hopefully they'll have some fresh cat grass soon, but I did give this cat grass some more water, so that's good. I just got a call from the animal hospital. They said Stella got through sedation okay. She's been waking up, and all her vitals were good during the procedure. Everything's fine. So they're going to continue to monitor her. They're going to start feeding her through a feeding tube through her nose. They say it goes directly into her stomach. They're going to check her electrolyte balance, so fingers crossed that everything continues to go well. They said they're going to check in with me in another few hours. Meanwhile, let me show you what I picked up at Petco yesterday. So this is Purina Tidy Cats Tidy Care Alert cat litter. It says it has color-changing crystals that help monitor the health of your cat. So when I was picking up food for Stella, I did have it in my mind. What if her ketone levels are high? And, the last time I took her to the vet in December, they could not get a urine sample because her bladder was empty. And so I was thinking to myself, well, what if I try out this litter? I never saw it before. Maybe it would help with a diagnosis. So what this is, it's a crystal litter, And when a cat pees in it, it actually changes colors to let you know what's going on with their urine. And they say what you want to do is you want to start with a clean litter box. So I went downstairs and got a clean litter box, and you want to fill it with 2 to 3 inches of alert. So I basically just put this entire bag in it because I used an extra large litter box. It says within 2 hours of use, compare litter crystals to color guide. Keep observing the color since it can vary naturally throughout the day, particularly 1 to 2 hours after eating. After 5 days, determine the most common color within the normal range. This is your baseline. And then it says you want to scoop your solids daily to ensure optimal absorbency. No urine clumps means easy maintenance. Stir frequently, adding alert as needed to maintain 2 to 3 inch depth. After 20 to 30 days for one cat, dispose of used litter. Wash box using mild detergent, dry, and refill with 2 to 3 inches of alert litter. How you doing, Sammy? Now, they do show you the colors. On the side of the bag, they give you the color guide. So normal is a range from yellow to olive green. They say that's most typical. Within 1 to 2 hours after eating, the color may appear more blue, dark green, but should return to your cat's baseline color. And then they say visit your vet if you see these colors. Acidity, which is deep yellow-orange, means acidic urine, which may be associated with potential metabolic acidosis or kidney tubular acidosis. Alkalinity, blue, dark green, means alkaline urine, which may be associated with a potential urinary tract infection or elevated risk of struvite stone formation. And then red shows the presence of blood, which may indicate serious health concerns. We recommend contacting your vet immediately. And this is the litter. This is what it looks like. Maybe I'll turn the light on. So it is mostly white, but it does have these kind of reddish brown specks in it. And the cats have actually been using it. They have not pooped in this yet, but they have peed in it. I'm gonna get a scoop and let's just see if there's anything in it right now so we could look at colors. It doesn't clump, but if a cat uses it, you can definitely see like a ball of color. So Simba was the first one to use this yesterday, pretty soon after I put it over here. And his pee was yellow. Like it just made like a yellow clump. So I looked at the bag and it said like yellow to olive green could be normal. That's fine. Like if it's a deep yellow, orangey yellow, then, you know, it could be acidic. So I was happy to see that one look normal. And then a few hours later, Splash used this litter box and his was like almost like a light olive green color. And I saw that was normal also. So happy about that. So far, those are the only 2 cats that have used this. So I'm just kind of testing it out right now. The one thing that I do have to say, it does kind of track, and you could tell that it's, you know, the silica versus clay by the way it sounds. Like obviously if I'm walking around barefoot or with socks on, you don't hear it. But if I'm wearing slippers or shoes, like you hear, it's like a different crunch under your feet. So that's how I know that there is some tracking involved with this. The other thing is that it's not clumping. So after a cat uses it, what you have to do, like after you look at the colors, you just kind of, it just kind of blends back in. And so far, there's no odor. Like obviously I've only had it 24 hours, but there's no odor from it. No one's pooped in it yet. That'll be a test. If someone poops in it, then we'll see what kind of odor protection this does have. But knowing how the cats are, like whenever I've tried different types of litter, like the last time I tried the cedar litter, the cats peed in it, but they never pooped in it. So I'm feeling like maybe the cats are just going to pee in this and not poop in it. But that's fine because that's the purpose of this litter, to just kind of get a baseline indication of, you know, what their urine is looking like. So we're testing it out. I'm just going to see what happens. Are the cats going to continue to use it, or they're not going to want to use it? You know, sometimes they'll use a litter once and then they don't want to use it anymore. But that's what this is. So if you have some concerns about your cat's health, you might want to try out this litter just to get an idea of, you know, what's going on. I know that sometimes it can be very difficult to get a cat to a vet. I know especially people that don't live as close to animal hospitals as I do, or don't live as close to vets' offices as I do. Sometimes, you know, they have to take a lot of the cat health care onto themselves. So this potentially could be a good tool. I do have to say it was very expensive. This was $24 for this bag. So if I was going to put this in like every litter box in the house, it would just be prohibitively expensive. I normally pay $11.99 for a bag of the Dr. LCs, and it's pretty much like the same size. Like obviously this is lighter, it's not going to be as heavy, but it's pretty much the same volume that I get in the heavier bags of clay litter. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know about this. Look at Nancy. This is a runner from the Dollar Tree. It's one of these grass runners from the Dollar Tree. Nancy's all cuddled up in it. That's Sammy making noise. I'll open the window, okay? You want me to open the window? I'm definitely feeling a little bit better knowing that Stella got through the sedation, because I know that, the vets were worried about her. Hopefully she'll continue to do okay. So, like an hour ago, my stress was on a scale of 1 to 10, it was at like a 9.5. Like it was up there. Let's say it was 9. Right now, maybe I'm like a 6 or a 7. So it's definitely a little bit lower. I'm thinking, I'd like to take a walk. If I'm not gonna scrub litter boxes, then I'm thinking maybe I should go for at least a short walk. I should also eat something, but I'm not hungry, so I'm just gonna continue to drink juice. Right, Boo? Like, there's nothing worse than being stressed and having an upset stomach at the same time. I just need to make sure I'm getting some, calories and sugar in the juice so my blood sugar doesn't tank. Because that can happen if you don't eat. Right, Boo? It's 1:12 p.m. Here's Simba. He's been laying in the chair next to me. This is his favorite spot when I sit down to work on my computer. I'm just about to go out and run some errands. I have to go to the post office, and I have to run to one of the local malls to make a few returns, and maybe run into a supermarket and pick something up. I don't know yet. But I'm going to do it now while I'm feeling somewhat human. I'm hoping I continue to get good calls from the animal hospital, but in case I get a bad call, I just want to do things now while I feel like doing them. It is 4:35 p.m. and here's Sammy. And I'm dealing with stress and anxiety. And I've realized that if I sit down to try to get work done, then it really hits me. And that's when I really feel it. And, it's just absolutely horrible. But if I'm moving around and if I'm doing things, then I feel like I'm dissipating that energy and it doesn't feel as bad. So that's what I've started to do again. I've started to just, I've scooped all the litter boxes, put fresh water in all the water bowls. I'm cleaning up some things in the kitchen, taking some stuff out to the garbage. I'm just trying to keep myself moving around so I don't have to sit still and just feel this anxiety, because that's what I'm feeling right now, and I don't like how it feels. Obviously, it's from Stella being in the animal hospital, but it's also, because I don't know what's going on there, and also I have no control over what's going on there. So, I can only hope for the best at this point as to, everything that they're doing, and hope that everything goes well with the treatment that Stella's on. There's no guarantees with anything, so that's why I'm trying to think positive and, envision a full recovery, a remarkable recovery. So I don't know, when they're going to call me back. I would like to go there this evening, but what's going to happen when I go there is I'm going to see Stella with a feeding tube up her nose, and there's another line in her neck. And I think I don't know if there's still an IV line in her arm or wherever they put it. So there's a lot going on, and I don't want to disrupt anything or be in the way of anything. And I don't want to upset Stella. I don't know. I don't want to upset her. And I really believe that cats can communicate telepathically. So that's what I've been trying to do with her. Communicate telepathically, letting her know everything's going to be okay. And that we're all waiting for her to come back and, get well. So that's what's going on here. I do need to sit down and get work done, though. But when I start to do that, then it just all hits me. It's like a ball of anxiety. So we'll see what happens. It is 6 p.m. And I've actually been able to sit down at my desk and get some work done because I took one of these. This is Nature's Plus Ultra 1 Daily, multivitamin and mineral with beta carotene. These are just capsules. It's basically a really high potency multivitamin capsule. And for some reason, I always forget that I have these. This is something that I took many years ago when I totally burnt myself out. Like I was working ridiculously long hours. I was working like a full-time job, and then I was like running a business on the side, and I just completely burnt myself out. And this is one of the things that I took, and it really works great for anxiety and for like nervous tension. And so that's why I remembered that I had this, and I'm like, oh, I haven't taken this in a while. So I just took one. Oh my God, these work so good. They have a lot of B vitamins in them, and it's just totally, like I could just feel it. It just takes anxiety away. It's so good. The back is a little bit dirty. I have some like dark honey stuck to it, but there's vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, vitamin B6, folate, vitamin B12, biotin, pantothenic acid, choline, calcium, iron, iodine, magnesium, zinc, selenium, copper, manganese, chromium, molybdenum, PABA, and inositol. And as far as like the percent of daily values, like it's really high, especially on the B vitamin complex. And when your body's under stress, you use up a lot of B vitamins. You also use up a lot of vitamin C. But I've been drinking a lot of juice today, so I feel like I'm getting my vitamin C that way, no problem. But then I was like, well, I haven't really been eating very well today. I ended up having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because I thought it would just be, something easy to digest. I don't know if that made anything worse because, I ate it on like white bread, and there was sugar in the jam. So sometimes when you have like simple carbohydrates, that can make anxiety worse. So I took one of these, and I'm feeling a lot calmer right now. I'm just like, it totally took the edge off. That's the best way that I could explain it. It took the edge off. So maybe I was at like up to a 9 before, when I was trying to, sit down and get work done, or if I was trying to lay on the bed and relax. I couldn't even do that because I just had too much nervous energy. So then I was moving around again, and I was like, oh, I remember I have these. So I took one of these. I said, I'm going to sit down. I've actually been able to get work done on the computer. So yeah, that's what's going on. Here's Simba. He's still in the chair next to me. The other thing that's going on is yesterday, like last night when I left the animal hospital, one of the, I don't know if it was a doctor or a vet tech, but they specifically told me, like, she's like, I want you to know that no news is good news. She goes, if you don't get a call from us, it's usually because, there's nothing bad going on. So that's why I'm hoping. I haven't heard anything, since earlier today. And it also makes me more nervous every time the phone rings because I'm like, oh my God, is it bad news? So that's what I'm dealing with. Hello, Nancy. It's 11:33 p.m. and here's Nancy. She wants to stay up here with the OG4 minus Stella. Stella's still in the hospital, and I had a chance to visit her this evening. I went over there around 8:45 or so. When I got there, she was stable, but they moved her. So yesterday, she was in like a little cage that was like off to the side. You okay, sweetie? So it was a little bit more quiet. She had some privacy, and I thought that would be good for her. Obviously, Stella was not happy there yesterday. Here's Simba. So when I got there today, they moved her to a cage that's twice the size, and they were like really proud of themselves. So I hung out with Stella for a little while. And what happened was when I was sitting there with Stella, because they let you sit on the floor next to the cage, I was realizing that there were like really big dogs, like only feet away from her. There were like big Labradors, and like a Great Dane came in. I mean, anyone who comes in the room would be like right next to her cage, if not very close to right in front of it. I mean, it was like Grand Central Station where she was, and I could tell that she was stressed out. I mean, she was laying there with her head in the water bowl, and I've never seen Stella do anything like that. And at first I was worried. I'm like, oh my God, she's going to like drown or asphyxiate herself. But they're like, oh no, don't worry. We don't really keep much water in because she likes to put her head in there. And I was like, guys, this is like a stress reaction on her part. So I looked around the room and I found like an empty cage in the corner, in like a back corner. I'm like, can we please move her over there? So they got it ready for her. They, sprayed it down, disinfected it, and they were very nice. They moved some nice blankets in there for her, and they found her bed. So what they did was they put her bed through the laundry. They say they do a lot of laundry there. So I guess whoever was doing laundry just took everything out of the cage that she was in and dumped everything in the laundry, which I was not happy about because I was really happy that she had the bed with her because then she has all the smells of home with her. You know, with cats, scents are really important. So by them putting it through the laundry, she didn't have any smells of home. But thankfully, what I did was I brought like a blanket from Sharon. So that had smells of everyone on it. I brought her like a little worm toy that she likes. And I also brought some of her like favorite squeeze-ups and churros and some Shibas and a fancy feast because I was hoping that, you know, maybe I could see if she wanted to eat those. And they were happy that I did that because they had like little plates of food near her, but she didn't want to eat any of it. And I said, yeah, you know, for the past few days or like the previous day, she didn't want to eat anything. So she was still not eating anything. They did have the feeding tube in, and the protocol is to give her like 25% of like normal calories today. And then tomorrow it'll be like 50% of normal calories. And then the next day it'll be like 75% of normal calories because, you know, they don't want any issues with refeeding. So hopefully the hope is that once she starts getting more calories, she'll start feeling better and actually want to eat on her own again. So I was asking them, I was like, is she going to come home with a feeding tube? And the girl that I was talking to was like, no, you know, hopefully she'll be eating before she goes home. And I said, well, I've been, you know, looking into other people that have had a cat with a similar situation, and the cat actually came home with the feeding tube. So she was surprised to hear that. So I don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, we're just taking it one day at a time. We're just trying to get Stella well, hopefully get her eating again. The other thing that they did, they were checking her gums in her mouth. And I was like, because, you know, I ask a lot of questions. So when they were checking her gums, I was like, well, what is it you guys are looking for? And they're like, oh, well, there's a little bit of jaundice here. There's some yellowing. And I said, oh, okay. So then she definitely does have hepatic lipidosis. And they confirmed that. They said her bilirubin levels were a little bit high. I said, you know, I was concerned about that, and I was actually checking like the whites of her eyes for several days before bringing her in because she had not been eating all of her food, and I heard that, you know, that's something that could happen along with the hepatic lipidosis. You'll see like the jaundice, but I said I didn't notice anything, and they also said that they didn't notice it yesterday, but it seemed to present itself today, and they said that's something that could happen once you start refeeding them, that their bilirubin levels could actually go up a little bit. So hopefully that'll resolve itself. Right, Nancy? Do you miss Stella? Nancy, do you miss Stella? Last night, Nancy was up here, but then eventually she wanted to go downstairs. Like right before I went to bed, she's like, I'm going to go downstairs. And I hope she goes downstairs because Splash, you know, doesn't really like it when Nancy's up here. You going to go downstairs, Nancy? You want to go downstairs? You want to stay up here? Simba's getting along better with Nancy. Like, he's not really afraid of her. They're learning to coexist. You okay, Nancy? So what I'm hoping is that tomorrow I could take care of the cats. Then what I'd like to do is take my laptop over to the animal hospital and camp out with Stella and hang out there for like a few hours, maybe, you know, from like 11 to 1 or 11 to 2, and then come home and, do what else I need to do. Today I bought a whole bunch of ingredients to make homemade raw food, and that's what I'm hoping to do tomorrow. Now, the animal hospital told me that I'm not allowed to bring raw food in there. For whatever reason, you're not allowed to bring in raw food. So I said, well, can I bring in seafood? I said, she's been eating like steamed shrimp and steamed scallops. And they said, that's okay, but it just can't be raw food. But that does present a problem because, Stella mostly likes raw food. She's not the biggest fan of eating canned food. I might also bring some dry food in. I don't know. I'm going to see. I'm going to put together like a little picnic basket for her and see if she'll eat something. Hopefully, I hope she feels better. I just really want her to be able to relax and get sleep. And that was my concern, like where they had her in that cage that was right in the middle of everything. I'm like, there's no way she's going to be relaxing there or sleeping. And then when she moved to the corner, she actually closed her eyes and she was like starting to take a nap. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to leave. It was already after 10. And I was like, I'm going to let her just relax and take a nap. Stella, how are you doing, Stella? You okay? So that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping she likes her new cage in that location and she'll be able to just really relax and heal herself and get well. Now, I do have to say they have a lot of tubes in her. So the feeding tube goes into her nostril. Then it goes around the back. They have like a thing around her neck. And I think there's like another, like an IV line or something, a fluid line that's going into her neck. And then they have like an insulin drip going into her also. So she has like a lot of lines coming into her. But hopefully they could keep everything stable and everything could progress into a good direction. It is kind of sad to see her like that. But I keep telling myself it's just a temporary situation and we'll get through this. And once she gets through this, then, we'll just work on recovery, kind of like rehab. You know how when people go into rehab after like a major health issue. So once we get through this, then Stella will go into like rehab and then we could work on just getting her health improved. And, she's dealing with a lot right now. So she's dealing with potentially diabetes. She's dealing with ketoacidosis. And she's also dealing with hepatic lipidosis. And all of those, are manifestations of just a totally acidic system. So her body was breaking down fat faster than it could, like, metabolize it. And, thankfully, when I talked to my vet, he was able to, really pinpoint what was going on. Nancy's here because she wants to see what's going on the patio. She's just nosy. Right, Nancy? Right, Nancy? You going to go downstairs, Nancy? No? You going to stay there? Okay, I'm going to bed, Nancy. I'm really tired, but at least I saw Stella, so my nerves are not as bad as they were before. It's 8 a.m. Good morning, Boo. Did you sleep okay, Boo? Boo was here all night. I got up in the middle of the night a few times. And at one point, I just was like, okay, I got to make a list of things I need to do. Or things I need to get for Stella because I want to bring her more food to try today. But I think I need to go to like the Dollar Tree and maybe buy more of the little plastic spoons, like the little baby spoons that she likes to eat out of. Maybe some little like storage containers so I could try out different types of food for her and easily bring them there. The thing is, like anything I bring there, I have to be able to like leave there and not worry about never seeing it again. Here's Simba. Simba jumped on my bed in the middle of the night and was hanging out there for a little while. I gave him some pom-poms with catnip, but he didn't really play with them. Hello, Simba. Hopefully Stella continues to do well today. I hope. Right now, I still have anxiety. It was much less yesterday once I saw Stella, and like when I came back from the animal hospital. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, my anxiety was probably down to like a 5. Today it's back up a little bit because, in my mind it's like you never know what happens overnight, but I'm probably at like a 7 right now. Also, I just need to get moving and need to start doing stuff. I almost got up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and I was going to be like, okay, I'm up, I'm ready. But I was like, no, I need to just continue to rest. I need, to make sure that I'm taking care of myself also, and I need to get plenty of rest. So I did end up falling back asleep, but now I need to get moving. What's happening is I'm just feeling like I'm full of adrenaline. I feel like my adrenaline has been turned on. It hasn't been turned off. So it's just like I'm totally running on adrenaline right now. I hate that feeling. I just hate the feeling. It is 10 a.m. and here's Boo. And I was able to actually eat breakfast today, which I am so proud of because yesterday I could not stomach food at all. And today I was able to eat something. So I made myself eggs on a roll. Yesterday when I was at the supermarket, I picked up some hard rolls with poppy seeds on them because poppy seeds potentially could have a calming effect on somebody. So I figured that would be good. Yesterday I made like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on one, again, because I just wanted something that was going to be easy to digest and eat. And then today I actually had an appetite this morning and I was like, I'm just going to make an egg sandwich. So I just kept it really simple. And that's what I had. And I had an orange. And now I need some water or juice and then I'm good to go. I'm going to make breakfast for the cats. And then I'm going to start putting stuff together to go see Stella. I've been working on a tablet for her because when I was there yesterday, I gave her my phone and I was playing that Music for Cats CD that the cats really relax to. I was also playing her some of the Lucky Feral videos because she really seemed to enjoy watching that. I guess she hears my voice and she sees the other cats. So she really liked that. And then it seemed to relax her enough that she, laid down and she closed her eyes and she was going to take a nap. So unfortunately, the tablet that I'm using does not have an YouTube app on it. I'm using like one of those Amazon Fire tablets. I've had this one for years and I just reset it and I put the music albums on, no problem, because I could get that from Amazon Music, but I can't get the YouTube app. So I think for now it'll be good enough. I'm going to leave it there in her cage. With the music playing. We're going to put it on repeat and I'll just have those 2 albums playing nonstop for her. I'm just going to put it on really low, not loud or anything. And hopefully that'll help her. Hopefully she's doing better today. I'm doing better today, so that's good. I hope she's doing better also. The goal is to try to get her to eat something, so I need to put together a variety of foods that I could bring over there. But I'm hoping that since I left some foods and treats for her, that she's actually has eaten something this morning. Right, Bo? Okay, let's have breakfast. You want breakfast? Let me show you what else I've been taking to deal with this stress. So this is Andrographis, and this is an amazing immune system booster. Whenever I feel like I might be coming down with something, I take this. I take 1 capsule in the morning and 1 capsule at night, and this works great. So if I'm in a situation where I feel like my immunity needs a boost, this works wonderful for that. So I took one of these early this morning, and then I'll take another one at night. I'm also taking some adrenal glandulars to help my adrenal glands, because adrenal glands produce adrenaline, and I feel like mine are working overtime right now, so this helps to support them. The other thing that I'm taking It's hard to film this because Boo keeps wanting to walk underneath. Look, do you see what he keeps doing? I don't know why he keeps doing that. Anyway, the other thing that I'm taking is this bone and connective tissue support capsules. These are amazing. I started taking these about 10 years ago to strengthen my joints. But what I noticed as a side effect was that these completely eliminated any seasonal depression or like seasonal affective disorder. Like I have that in the winter when I don't get enough sunshine. And if I don't prepare for it throughout the year, then it could be really bad. Like this year has been pretty bad because I didn't prepare for it because I was working so much this past year. But if I prepare for it by getting lots of sunshine and lots of outdoor activities throughout the year, it's not so bad in the winter. But when I take this, it's non-existent. Like I could get through the winter feeling absolutely perfectly. Like I don't get that, that down feeling that you get with all the darkness. And right now it's usually like the worst part of the winter. January is usually the worst part of the winter because it's easy to get through like the Christmas season, although sometimes that's difficult because it's so dark. Like that's the darkest time of the year. And now the days are getting longer and we can finally feel like maybe spring will be here soon. But any vitamin D reserves that were left in our body are like really low by this point, especially if you're not supplementing with that. And I found that these work even better than taking like vitamin D through the winter. These are amazing. So anytime I need any mood support, anytime I need like a boost in morale, I take these. And now these don't make you feel like you're on anything. They just support your body. That's all they do. This is what I've been taking. I take 2 of these in the morning and then I've been taking 2 at night. Now I don't take these all the time. I just take them when I need like a mental boost. I did take these occasionally this past winter, but now dealing with the Stella situation, I'm taking these like twice a day. I also have my vitamin D drops to make sure that I'm keeping my immunity strong, magnesium glycinate to help with relaxation, and then these liquid vitamin B drops. So when I woke up in the middle of the night and I started making lists of things I need to do today, I could not fall back asleep. So what I did was I took half a dropper full of this and then it relaxed me and I fell back asleep. It is 4 p.m. and here's Boo. How you doing, Boo? I just got back from the animal hospital. I probably got to the animal hospital around 12:30 and I was there for about 3 hours. I'm really not happy with the way Stella is being handled today. So when I first got there, they wanted to let me know that things were not going as well as they were last night. So when I left there last night, everything was stable. Things were doing good. It looked fine. I get there this morning and they took her blanket out of her cage. They took her cat bed out of her cage. I don't know if they were doing the laundry or what. And then one of the girls there told me that they shaved her belly and her hind legs because she had peed on herself. Well, the reason why she peed on herself probably is because they have one of her hind legs practically in a big cast. Like she could hardly move around in it at all. She's hooked up to, the IV, the insulin, and they have a small litter box, but it has like only a tiny bit of pellets in it. So I asked them if I could bring litter for her because she's not going to use the litter that they have there. She doesn't like that litter. So they said I could bring the litter that she's used to. Then they also told me that they disconnected her feeding tube. And I was like, why are you doing that? And they said because they gave her some like an appetite stimulant and they wanted to see if she would eat by herself. So I just happened to show up perfect timing with a whole bunch of food to try to get her to eat. But of course she didn't want to eat any of it because she's not feeling well. She's stressed out and she's supposed to be on a feeding tube. Eventually what I realized is that I thought Stella would let me give her some food in a syringe, like syringe feeder. And I was able to do that. But they told me like only give her very little bits and make sure she's swallowing. So that's what I did. I gave her like a tiny bit and like she swallowed and a tiny bit and she swallowed and a tiny bit and she swallowed. So she ended up eating, 3 or 4 milliliters of food. It wasn't a lot at all. And then they are taking like blood once an hour to check on her and just see what her levels are. And I felt really bad because then another little dog came in and he was just pooping blood. Like it was just straight blood coming out of him, like gobs of blood. And so they had him in an oxygen chamber kind of next to Stella. So after I, force-fed Stella a little bit, I decided that I'm just going to leave. I saw she wanted to like lay down and take a nap, and that I think it's good for her to take a nap. So what I did was I took some towels and I hung the towels over the front of the cage because I think she needs some darkness. I think she needs some peace and quiet. She's never going to get any rest or relaxation if she's in the middle of a brightly lit room with all kinds of noise going on around her. Like, it's just not going to happen. So hopefully by putting the towels over the front of the cage, she'll be able to rest and get some sleep. Because whenever I'm there, she's not sleeping. And I even asked the vet. It's a different vet today. It's this like really young vet. I don't even know if he knows what he's doing. Because I got the feeling that he's just too inexperienced. He doesn't know what he's doing. Because I kept hearing him like on the phone trying to figure out, what he needs to do with regards to Stella. And what I ended up doing is I ended up calling the vet that the cats go to. And I left a message there because I think the office is closed. And then the vet called me back and I told him my concerns. Also, I specifically suggested that they give Stella a B12 shot because I think it would be good for her. And I've heard of a lot of people using B12 shots on cats if they're not doing very well. And then it really, it helps them improve and perks up their appetite. So the doctor told me he needed to research that. Oh, I'll have to do some research on that. So then I talked to my vet about it, and my vet said, well, he doesn't think it would be a bad idea because it's a water-soluble vitamin, and he doesn't think like it could hurt. And he says it's, worth trying. But then, of course, he's not there to do it. So I asked if he could please reach out to somebody there and talk to them and make sure that they're giving Stella the best care that she could get. Because I really felt like the people there today were not giving her good care at all. Now, what they told me was that her vitals are okay, like her heartbeat's okay, her pulse, like all that stuff's okay. That's what they told me. But they said she's having trouble with her electrolytes. Her electrolytes are low. They're having trouble, keeping them where they need to be. So that's where it stands. Stella's not happy, obviously, because of the situation, but I'm hoping that we could get through this. And I'm hoping that when I go back there in a few hours, I'll be able to force feed her some better quality food. I have a can of Instinct kitten pate, so I'd like to do that. I want to make sure she's getting adequate calories, and hopefully the night shift, they change shifts around 7:30. Hopefully the night shift will be a lot better people. But today, I just don't like the people there at all. Here's Boo, and I'm in the middle of editing this video that you're watching right now. And I just realized that I don't have any more footage of what happened the rest of the day. The reason why is because I was so busy and so stressed out, and I had so much anxiety, I just completely forgot to film anything. So what happened was, a few hours later, I received a phone call from the emergency room. And it was not the vet that was on duty that day. It was a vet that was on duty a previous day. And she was telling me that she thought it would be best for Stella to be transferred to a specialist at another animal hospital. And she gave me a choice of 2 animal hospitals. One of them I've been to before with Stella, with Hydrox, with Ditto, with Simba. And it's relatively close by, so I chose that one. So she said to me, when are you going to come and pick her up? And I thought maybe that they had like a little vet ambulance or something that would transfer her, but no, they require like pet parents to come and do the transfer. So I was like, well, I could be there at about 6:30. She called me at around 5:30, and I had just been putting food together for the cats, and I needed to just, get my things together and get over there. So I gave myself an hour to do that. I was like, I'll be there at 6:30. So as soon as I got off the phone with her, I immediately called Stella's vet, the vet that, the cats go to. And I left him a message. And like a minute later, he called me back and he said that he was on hold with the emergency room when I was leaving him a message. And he also told me that he thought it was a good idea for Stella to be transferred out of there and see a specialist at the local animal hospital. And that's why he was calling the emergency room. And I said, well, it looks like everyone has the same idea at the same time. So like I was really hopeful with that. And I was relieved. I was so relieved that Stella was getting out of there because it was such a nightmare that day. I can't even tell you how poorly she was treated that day. The vet tech that was there that day gave me so much attitude for no reason, because when I went there, I was so super polite to everyone and like accommodating. And I just kept my mouth shut because I'm like, I don't want to cause problems with any of these people here. I want Stella to get the best care possible. So I'm going to do whatever they tell me to do. And I'm going to ask questions because as a customer and a cat parent, it is my right to know what's going on. But I'm not going to be rude or anything. Well, this vet tech really had me on the verge of being rude because not only did she shave Stella's belly and legs instead of properly cleaning her and caring for her, she just gave me so much attitude. Like when I asked for a syringe, I was like, can I have a syringe to try to syringe feed Stella? Because what I was doing, I was finger feeding her. I put some food on my finger and I was like putting it in her mouth and Stella was taking it and actually swallowing it. So I was like, wow, that's a great sign because she would not do that at home. Stella would not do that at home. She would literally fight me, spit stuff out, and there would be like food all over the room. But she was doing it there. So I was like, okay, this is great. I could probably syringe feed her. So I asked the vet tech, I was like, can I please have a syringe so I could try to syringe feed her? And the vet tech was literally like, well, why would you want to do that? And I was like, because it's pretty standard and commonplace when it comes to feeding cats that don't want to eat. And she's eating off my finger. So I think it would be better to feed her off a syringe. And she's like, well, I'm going to have to ask the vet about it. And I was like, okay. So then I waited, and then a while later, she hands me a syringe. She's like, here, and just make sure you don't feed her too much. And I was like, okay, well, can you tell me how much I could feed her? And then she didn't answer me. And I was like, can you tell me how much she's already eaten today? And she didn't answer me. So I was like, okay, whatever. And I was able to syringe feed Stella very small amounts of food, some of the baby food that I brought with me, some of the other food that I brought with me. But because I did not know how much she already had through the feeding tube or how much I was allowed to feed her, I didn't know if I was giving her too much or too little or whatever. And the vet tech was not helping me. So I was just really super frustrated with that. Not happy at all. And the other thing that happened that day is, so during the 3 days that I was there, every single day they were taking blood out of Stella. It seemed like every hour, but it was probably more like every hour and a half or every 2 hours. And they were not just taking a little bit of blood. It wasn't like, pricking a finger and doing a blood test like, a diabetic does. They were taking out vials of blood that were like this big. I saw them take so many vials of blood out of Stella over those 3 days that on that third day, I stood there watching them take blood out of Stella and thinking to myself, my gosh, she's not going to have any blood left. That's literally what I thought. Like, she's not going to have any blood left. So that's why I was so relieved when they were like, we think it's best to transfer her to another animal hospital. So I get there at 6:30 and I walk into where Stella's cage is and I hear like beeping and I'm like, what's the beeping noise? And that vet tech says to me, well, it's her feeding tube. She's being fed right now. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, that's kind of weird. Like, why did they wait to feed her like right before I'm supposed to transfer her? Like, isn't she supposed to be monitored when she's on this feeding tube? Like, what if her like values or levels change? Like, she's not going to be here. She's not going to be monitored. Like, she's going to be in the process of being transferred somewhere. So I wasn't happy with that. They put Stella in her carrier. And I remember picking up the carrier and the vet tech was like right near me. And I thanked her. I was like, oh, thank you for your help with Stella. And all she says to me really nastily is, good luck. And it was the kind of thing where I picked up Stella's carrier and I went to walk out to the front area, like to pay the bill. And it was like I could hear her thinking, yeah, you're going to need it. That's how nasty this woman was. Like, I can't even call her a woman. Like, literally, she was a bitch. But I had to keep myself being super polite and, respectful. So I brought Stella up to the front, and I did bring a towel with me to put over the carrier because I was very worried about her because, they shaved off half of her fur and it was 30 degrees outside that night. Now, Sharon made a beautiful cover for that carrier, but with everything that was going on, I could not remember where I put it. It's in a closet somewhere, but I couldn't remember where. So I just grabbed a towel and I cut a hole in the middle of it so it would go over the handle, and that's what I used. I was like, a towel should be warm. So I sat up near reception with Stella in the carrier, and Stella was putting her paws through the front of the carrier like she wanted to get out of the carrier.
Stella, you're such a good girl. I love you so much, baby. Put your paw inside.
So I opened the door and I was petting her. I was like petting her head, and she literally tried to crawl out of the carrier. And I was like, Stella, you have to stay in the carrier, because she had the feeding tube in her nose. She had like this thing around her neck. She had another line going into her neck. And then she still had the catheter in her leg where they were taking all of the blood. So I was like, Stella, you got to stay in the carrier. We're going to be leaving soon. She was just so happy. She was so happy to be leaving there. So I paid the bill. And the people that worked there, like every single person that worked there that day, was just so cold and completely lacking in any type of human compassion whatsoever. Like it was a nightmare, like an absolute nightmare. So I get Stella in the car and we drive to the other animal hospital. And when we get to the other animal hospital, it was a 180-degree difference between the animal hospital and the emergency room. The animal hospital was just like so calm. It's like, first of all, it's much bigger than this emergency room. And it was so calm. It was such a calming environment. And they had a triage nurse come right out to meet me because, the emergency room let them know that I was on my way. So the triage nurse comes out to meet me, and I knew right away she was a cat person, and I was explaining everything to her, and she was just so kind and compassionate. And what happened was I was telling her about, how Stella was treated at the emergency room, like all these big dogs. She's afraid of big dogs, strange people. She had no sleep, the bright lights, the noise. And this is how good they are at this other animal hospital. All of a sudden, someone walked in with a German Shepherd, like a big German Shepherd. The dog was barking, and I was immune to it. I was immune to it because of all the time that I spent in the emergency room where it was like super loud, dogs constantly barking, like all kinds of chaos. This triage nurse immediately said, there's a big dog here. Let me take Stella in the back. I don't want her getting more stressed out than she is. So she took Stella out to the back, and I was like, okay, I finished, doing like whatever you need to do, like the paperwork or whatever to have her admitted. And then I went to their waiting room. Their waiting room is like the size of the entire emergency room at the other place. But it is so calm and so peaceful. And I sat there and I was like, oh my God, it is like a day and night difference. Like it was just so different. And I was so angry that I did not bring Stella there to begin with. I was like, why did I not bring Stella here to begin with? I just was beating myself up over that. But, I had been there in the past, and I've also been to the emergency room in the past. I honestly thought Stella would get treated quicker at the emergency room because when I've been there before with like Boo or even Stella in the past, they've gotten seen right away. Whereas at the other animal hospital, sometimes I've been there like 5 hours waiting for a cat to be seen. So I think that really contributed to deciding to take Stella to the emergency room. But based on what happened with Stella in the emergency room, I will never, ever take another cat there. And I would advise anyone with a cat to never, ever take their cat to an open concept veterinary emergency room. I'm not naming names. That business model should be banned. It is so traumatic to cats. So what happened was they took Stella to the back, and I'm sitting in the waiting room, and I was trying to relax in the waiting room. And the next thing I know, there's a woman coming out, and she's saying like, who's here for Stella? Is someone here for Stella the cat? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. So she comes over to me and she says, I just want to let you know that we're getting her stabilized, and then we'll be bringing you back to one of the exam rooms. And I was like, well, what do you mean stabilized? And she says, well, Stella's blood pressure went low, so we want to make sure she's stabilized before you come back into an exam room. And I was like, okay. And I was like, do you know how long that's going to take? She's like, it could take 20 minutes or it could take over an hour. I'm sorry, I can't tell you. And I was like, okay, well, thank you. So obviously my anxiety increases even more. I had a very, very hard time sitting still. So I figured, like, let me get up and let me see if I could find some kind of food or something to drink, some kind of juice or something. So I went up to the front desk and I asked the women there, I was like, do you guys have any vending machines? And she's like, no, I'm sorry, we don't. Like, we should. People ask us about that, but unfortunately we don't. And she's like, there's a pizza place a few blocks away if you want to go there. And I was like, I don't think I could even stomach a slice of pizza. Like, I was so nauseous. So she's like, well, we might have some goldfish crackers in our break room if you want me to get you those. And I was like, I don't even think I could stomach goldfish crackers, but thank you anyway. So I went outside and I went to my car, and thankfully I threw in a container of coconut water. Like, when I was putting together stuff to bring to the emergency room for Stella, I threw coconut water in there for myself, figuring, well, you know, I'm not eating anything, but at least I could drink that. It's kind of like a natural electrolyte drink. So I got that out of my car, and I grabbed some more of the ginger candies, and that's how I made it through waiting at the animal hospital. Eventually, I was called back to an exam room, and a very nice vet came out to tell me what was going on. She said, obviously, Stella's in critical condition, and one of the first things she told me was that Stella had no blood. They just did a blood test and she has no blood. So I literally said to her, how could that be? She just had a blood test a few days ago at the emergency room. Everything was fine. And now all of a sudden she has no blood. And she's like, yeah. And then she told me that, like, her level was like a 33 a few days prior. Now it was like a 26. And I said to her, I said, it's because they literally took her blood out of her. And I was explaining to her how much blood they were taking out of her at the emergency room. And you know, I think vets have like this code where they don't badmouth other vets, where they don't badmouth other businesses, because she just kind of kept her mouth shut and didn't really say much. She told me that normally if they're doing an hourly blood test, they're not going to take out that much blood. It's just going to be like a little bit to test the level. And I was like, no, they were taking out vials of blood. Every single time they took blood, they took a vial of blood out. So she went over various treatment options with me, and, you know, they had a whole list of things that they could do for Stella. And once again, I totally regretted the fact that I did not bring Stella there to begin with, because they just have so many more things that they can do there versus the emergency room. She explained the cost to me. She goes, you know, we're starting at $10,000 and we're going up to about $21,000. And I agreed to it without hesitation for two reasons. One, because I knew I had a credit card that had a zero balance that I would be able to put it on. And the other reason is what I told her. And I said, you know, I could always make more money. I could always make more money and pay off a vet bill. I can't make another Stella. So I want to give her every chance that I could give her. So that's what I agreed to. I had to put a deposit down on it. And she said, before you go, I want to walk you back to where Stella is, so, you know, you could see that she's resting comfortably. And I got to go to a part of this animal hospital that I've never been to before. It was gigantic. The equipment there made the emergency room look like a nursery school. Basically, this was like a legit animal hospital. Like, anything that an animal could possibly need was at this animal hospital. It was just gigantic. And the professionalism of the staff there was what I would expect from the professionalism in an animal hospital. Like, everyone was serious about their job. They're compassionate toward the animals. And it just really felt like you were in a hospital versus the emergency room, which was like a bunch of college kids who were playing and pretending they were vets. I felt much better with the new facility that Stella was in. And they walked me up to her And, she explained to me Stella's condition, and Stella was on oxygen. She had like a cup of oxygen in front of her nose, and she was laying there very peacefully. The first thing that I thought when I saw Stella was, wow, she's just so much happier here. And they had a blanket over her, obviously, because she was shaved at the other place. And they did everything that they could to make her really, really comfortable. Now, at this time, when I was seeing Stella, I knew in my mind that that could be the last time that I saw Stella, because at this point it's like 11:30 p.m., midnight. I don't know. It was like really, really late. I knew Stella's condition was very delicate, and anything could happen overnight. So that's when I talked to Stella and I had a conversation with her, and I basically had a conversation like it was going to be the last conversation that I ever had with her, because I did not know if she was going to make it through the night. I spent a good amount of time with her, and then eventually I decided, okay, well, I'll just let Stella try to get some rest, or maybe she'll get some sleep. They showed me the room that she would be in, and again, it was just so different from the emergency room. It was similar in the fact that it was a room with, cages along like 3 walls, but they told me that there's staff there 24/7, and it was like a separate room, a separate, quieter room. Like obviously any of the animals in it would be making noise, but it wasn't like people coming in off the street with an emergency type of noise. So I felt so much better that Stella would be in a much calmer, quieter place. And they also let me know that someone would be calling me the next day to talk to me about visiting hours. And they said that if her condition worsened overnight, that I would get a phone call. So that's how I left the animal hospital that day. I put the deposit on a credit card. At that point, I had 2 credit cards that were basically completely maxed out. And I came home and I made sure all of the cats were okay. I scooped litter boxes. I gave everyone water. And that was how Stella's 3rd day in the emergency room ended. Today is Thursday, February 6th, 2025. Stella passed away at 5:50 a.m. this morning. I am devastated. I feel the need to write this down to help me process my grief, and while everything is still fresh in my mind, before I forget the little bits and pieces of what has happened that can so easily be lost to time. If you are new here and you are watching this video and don't know who Stella was, she was a feral cat that showed up in my yard in 2016 with her boyfriend, Boo. I live next to the woods, so I've always had a population of feral cats that walk in and out of my yard. But these 2 cats were different. Whenever I saw them, they were always together. I started to put food out for them when I saw them, and they came by more often. Eventually, Stella started coming by alone, by herself, and coming up to my back door begging for food. She was very thin, and I could see that she needed some really good nutrition. So I fed her, and over time, I became her friend. One day when I was outside and she was lying on the patio, I could see her nipples and realized that she might be nursing kittens. A short while later, she brought them to my yard and introduced me to them. At that point, I knew that I would have to get more involved with the care and feeding of this little cat family. I was struck by how proud Stella was of her babies and how proud she was to be their mom. And I made the decision to do what I could to keep them together as a family. I have documented almost their entire journey through the videos on this channel. If you would like to know more, visit the channel page and sort the videos by oldest. You can then watch Stella throughout the years as she progressed from a feral cat that lived outside to a very happy house cat. You can watch how she was reunited with her boyfriend, Boo, who was rescued the year after she was, and how everyone learned to live together as a happy house cat family. In this video, I want to talk about what has happened recently and what has led to her passing. I feel the need to put this information out there so that hopefully nobody else will ever have to deal with this same thing. I honestly thought that I would have another 10 years with Stella in my life. She was such a strong and tough cat. Not once did I ever think that she would be taken away so soon, and that she would be the first cat to go. The grief feels insurmountable. I'm hoping that writing this today can help me find some clarity. Please appreciate every minute that you have with the people and animals in your life, because you never know how little time you have left with them. I'm having a very hard time not beating myself up mentally, thinking about all of the things that could have been done differently and that could have possibly changed the outcome of Stella's life so that she would still be here today. I really feel like I have failed her. She was only going to be 10 years old this year. Everything that I have done for the cats was always to keep them healthy. And now we have this sudden, unexpected, immense loss, an immense silence and emptiness in the house. There are so many unanswered questions and so many what ifs. I will be forever haunted by them and forever traumatized by what I witnessed. So let's talk about what happened and what I see as the chain of events that led to Stella's passing, even though this is incredibly difficult to do. I am writing this out today, but I will not be recording this until I can read this with some sort of composure. So when you're seeing this, if I sound calm and fine, that's why. As you may or may not know, Stella was always the foodie of the house. Whenever I was making food for the cats, she was always there to watch me and get the first taste. She really loved food. I always attributed that to the fact that she started life as a starving feral cat and had food security issues because of that. She was always eager to swoop in and eat whatever food was left on anyone else's plate. Back in September, Boo had issues with his mouth. He was bleeding from his mouth for 2 days before I could get him to the emergency vet for an exam. They diagnosed him as having a loose fang. A few days later, he had an appointment with a dental specialist who said he needed a cleaning and possible extractions. He had that dental procedure a few days later and ended up having 4 teeth extracted. During this time, Boo spent 3 weeks isolated in his room because he is FIV positive and should not be bleeding around the other cats. Also, he had to be on a soft food-only diet for 2 weeks following his procedure, and I did not want him eating anyone else's food, so I made sure he stayed in his room. After he was let out of his room, he ate okay for a week or 2, and then he became super finicky with his food. He suddenly didn't want to eat any of the foods that he normally loves. I had to try so many different things just to get him to eat anything. There were lots of plates with different types of food for him to try, and much of it was not the healthiest cat food. My goal was to get him to eat no matter what he was eating. He had been losing weight due to the issues with his teeth, and he was losing more weight because of not wanting to eat. What happened was that instead of Boo eating the majority of his food, Stella would swoop in and eat it. If I had to follow Boo into another room to try to get him to eat something, Stella would swoop in and eat anything that might be left over on a plate. If I turned my back to wash some dishes, Stella would swoop in and eat whatever food he wasn't eating. This went on for about 2 weeks, and then Boo finally regained his normal appetite. In October, I noticed that Stella had put on some extra weight from this extra eating. She was a big girl to begin with, and so I knew that extra weight would not be good for her. I weighed her, and she was over 18 pounds. I put all the cats on portion control and tried to make sure that they only ate what they were served and not anyone else's food. I began weighing them on a weekly basis like I used to do in the past. As I write this, I am being gripped with severe anxiety. The same severe anxiety that I have been dealing with over the past 3 days. I feel like I am freezing and I can't stop shivering. It stopped for about 6 hours this morning when it instantly turned to grief upon hearing about Stella's passing, but now it has returned and I am racked with anxiety and grief. Part of the anxiety is from the what if regarding portion control. What if I didn't put the cats on portion control and let Stella just continue to eat whatever she wanted and as much as she wanted? Would she still be here and healthy? Soon after the cats were on portion control, I began to notice that Stella was losing weight, which was a good thing because that was the goal. The goal was slow and steady weight loss of the weight that she had gained from eating so much leftover food. I just went and watched some of the videos that were filmed during this time, and Stella looked very happy, and there were no indications of health issues at all. Over the next few weeks, I noticed that Stella seemed to be dropping weight more easily than she had done in the past. This was not the first time that the cats were on portion control. We had done portion control and weekly weigh-ins many times previously, mostly with little success of dropping much weight. So I remember thinking that something didn't seem right since she was now dropping weight much easier. But her behavior was normal, she was happy, and she was eating well. So I didn't think too much of it. The only other thing that I noticed was that she seemed to be drinking more water than was normal for her. I remember thinking that it could be a sign of diabetes and planned on making an appointment with the vet to have her checked out. By now, it was the end of November and early December, and it was the busiest time of the work year for me. But this is where I have another what if. What if I took Stella to the vet sooner when I noticed the easier weight loss and water drinking? Could that have changed anything? 2 weeks later, in the middle of December, one night I noticed that Stella's back end looked redder or dirtier than it normally did. I grabbed a pet wipe and wiped her rear end with it, but didn't notice anything abnormal on the wipe. The next morning, I noticed strange litter box activity from Stella. I couldn't tell if she was pooping or peeing or what she was doing, and I was concerned that maybe she was showing symptoms of a UTI. An hour or so later, I found blood on the floor near another litter box, and Stella was relaxing on the floor not too far away from it. I checked the litter, and sure enough, there was a clump of litter with blood on it. And then I checked the litter box that she had used previously that morning and found a clump of litter with blood on it there also. That's how I knew it was from Stella. I immediately called the vet's office to make an appointment, and they were able to fit me in that same day. The vet gave her a complete checkup, and everything was fine. There was nothing out of the ordinary that was noticed during the checkup. She had x-rays, and there was nothing out of the ordinary on the x-rays. I even ordered a blood test to make sure there were no other issues. I discussed her weight loss, and we both agreed that it could be beneficial for her to lose another pound or two. The only thing we couldn't do that day was get a urine sample from her because her bladder was empty. The blood in the litter box was diagnosed as an anal gland infection, and she was given an antibiotic shot for that. And here's where I have another what if. What if I had pushed the fact that I was concerned maybe she was losing weight too fast? Would that have changed anything? The reason why I didn't was because everything came back normal during the exam and the x-ray, and Stella was still a big girl. There was never any more blood other than that day, but for 2 days following her vet visit, she peed outside of the litter box. I called the vet's office to get the results of her blood test and was told that everything was normal except her eosinophils were a little high and her blood sugar was a little high. We talked about it potentially being an indication of prediabetes and making sure that she stays on a low-carb diet to help reduce the blood sugar. But it was not at a level that would be alarming enough to be an immediate diagnosis of diabetes. High eosinophils are usually associated with parasitic infections and allergies. She had no symptoms of allergies, so the next test for her would be a stool test to rule out parasites. The following week, she had a stool test, and that came back negative. So far, writing this out has been very therapeutic because the human brain has a tendency to focus on negatives and get stuck in negative thought cycles. That has definitely been happening to me over the past few days. Writing this out with as much detail as possible and rewatching some of the videos has helped me to more clearly revisit the past few months. I only wish that I had filmed more videos than I did. The vlogs feature only about 1% of the daily life of the cats. I'm finding it so hard to believe that Stella is gone. It was mid-January when I noticed that Stella wasn't eating as much as she normally did. She wasn't interested in food like she normally was. It reminded me very much of what Boo went through a few months previously. So I thought she was dealing with a similar issue and it would pass after a week or two. I tried feeding her a wide variety of different foods every day to see what she would eat. Since cats that don't eat for too long or who eat too few calories for too long can get hepatic lipidosis, which is a very serious illness. Some days she would eat more than other days. Like I had done with Boo several months previously, I tried all different kinds of foods. It seemed that over time, she was getting less interested in food and not returning to her normal eating levels like Boo had done. I knew it was time to call the vet and take her in for another checkup, so I made an appointment for her. Other than being super finicky with her food and continuing to lose some weight because of it, she had no other symptoms. She was acting normally, she wasn't hiding, she didn't seem to be in any pain, and her daily habits had not changed. The only difference was that she didn't want to play as much as she used to in the few days prior to me calling the vet. And of course, this is another area where I say, what if? What if I had called the vet sooner and taken her in for an exam sooner? Would she still be here today? 3 days ago, Stella did not eat at all. Not only did she not eat, but she started to act differently. When she moved, it looked like she was moving in slow motion, and it reminded me very much of what Boo did when he was living outside and had a fever and an infection. So although we had a vet appointment the next morning, I decided to take her to a local pet emergency room to have her checked out immediately. I did not want to wait another 12 or more hours. When she got to the emergency room, they ran a blood test and they said her blood sugar was normal, but her ketone levels were super high. Even though she had never been diagnosed with diabetes, they told me that she was in diabetic ketoacidosis and needed to be admitted immediately and put on fluids and electrolytes to get her numbers balanced. I specifically told them that she had not eaten and that she had not been eating well. They completely disregarded that and did not administer any food or a feeding tube. In addition, they completely disregarded the fact that cats can get ketoacidosis without being diabetic. They can get it from weight loss, like Stella had been losing weight for the previous few months, and they can also get it from a diet that is too low in carbohydrates. Now, I had been to this emergency room several times before. The first time was in the summer of 2021 with Stella when she had vomiting and diarrhea. They did a blood test and x-rays and told me that everything looked okay and she probably just had gastritis. They gave me some Fortiflora to put on her food and sent us home. The next time I was there was when Boo was bleeding from the mouth, which ended up being from a loose fang, which they pulled right there since it was so loose. And the last time that I had been there was back in September when Boo was bleeding from the mouth again. They were able to examine him and determine that it was from another loose fang, which is how we started this story back in September. Now, all 3 previous experiences at this emergency room were in a separate exam room. We did not have to wait very long. We were seen quickly by the vet, and everyone there seemed nice and competent. That is why I decided to take Stella there. The other option was to take her to a local 24/7 animal hospital that I had also been to several times before with Ditto and Hydrox and Stella when she had an issue with one of her eyes that ended up being a cut inside of her eyelid. That animal hospital always had extremely long wait times, and there were times when I was there for 5 hours because the wait was so long. I thought it would be better for Stella to be seen more quickly, so I decided to take her to the emergency room instead of the animal hospital. I took Stella there in one of the round cat carriers with a bed inside of it that Sharon made. They put her in one of their cages in her bed and said they needed to administer fluids and electrolytes. Since it can be very loud and noisy in that emergency room, I requested that she be put in a cage as far away from the noise as possible. And if it was possible, to cover the front of the cage with a towel so that she would feel safer and not as stressed out. She was very stressed out. The vet or vet tech that I was speaking to helped me put a towel up, and Stella was resting comfortably. I stayed with her for a little while and then went home around 10:30 p.m. I made the mistake of trusting that they knew what they were doing. The next morning, I called the vet's office to let them know that we would not be coming in for our appointment because Stella had been admitted to the emergency room. The vet called me back shortly after that, and I discussed the situation with him. He wanted me to tell him everything that had been going on, so I told him what I have been sharing with you here. When he heard about Stella recently being very finicky with her food, her weight loss, and the fact that she did not eat at all on Monday, he said that it sounded like there was hepatic lipidosis and that she needed to be on a feeding tube right away. He then called the emergency room and spoke to the main vet on duty that day. A short while later, the emergency room called me to get my permission to give Stella sedation so that they could put a feeding tube in her nose and a line in her neck to administer electrolytes since her numbers weren't where they needed to be yet. My anxiety was through the roof. I gave my approval, and they called me 2 hours later to let me know that everything went well and Stella's vitals were fine the whole time, and they were going to start feeding her and administering insulin. Why would it take me talking to my vet and then my vet having to call the emergency room for them to realize what is going on and for them to administer a feeding tube when I had specifically told them she had not been eating, she had been super finicky recently, and she had been losing weight? This goes to show you that they were not doing their job correctly. I went to visit Stella later that night and was horrified to find that they had moved her out of the cage that she had been in, which was somewhat away from the activity and noise, and instead put her in a larger cage right in the middle of all of the noise and activity. She could not have been put in a cage more noisy and more busy than where they moved her. They were proud that they moved her to a larger cage, but Stella looked terrified. She was laying there with her head in a water bowl. I was afraid she was going to drown, but they told me that she was drinking it and enjoying laying like that, so they put very little water in the bowl. I told them that it was clearly a stress response and she was trying to hide behind the bowl because she was so exposed. There were very big dogs on leashes only a few feet away from her. Whenever animals entered or exited the room, they passed right by her cage. There was so much noise and activity, it was impossible for her to get any sleep at all overnight. I felt so bad for Stella. She also didn't have her cat bed anymore. They told me that they do a lot of laundry there and it probably got put in the laundry and then they went to look for it. Then they came back with some other bed that I said was not hers. I told them what hers looked like and eventually they found it. So then I very politely asked them if I could have her moved to another large cage in the farthest corner of the room so that she would be away from the animals coming in and out and all of the noise and the commotion. They didn't understand that cats get nervous when fully exposed in noisy locations around big animals and strange people that they don't know. I was heartbroken for Stella. The vet that night told me that she was doing well and that her electrolytes had stabilized and they had started feeding her through the feeding tube. I asked them how much she was getting and they told me that she was on a refeeding schedule that starts at 25% of her normal food intake for the first day and would then increase to 50% the next day, 75% the day after that, and eventually 100%. Since she was a vet and this was an emergency room, I trusted what she told me. But I could not understand how Stella's ketones were going to come down if she was not being fed enough food so that her body was not burning fat. Ketones are produced as a result of fat burning. If Stella was not getting enough calories and she was not getting enough food and her body continued to burn fat, how are the ketones going to come down? I had brought one of Stella's favorite blankets for her. I rubbed it on myself, splashed Simba and Boo before I left home so that she would have some of the sense of home in her cage. I also brought some of Stella's favorite foods in with me, and they said it would be okay if I tried to feed her. Unfortunately, Stella still did not want to eat and was avoiding any food that I put near her. Stella was still her feisty self, and there were quite a few times when I was sitting there with her with the doors to her cage open when she would try to walk out of it. I would have to gently stop her by putting my arms around her in a loose hug. I knew she wanted to leave, but I wanted her to get the care that she desperately needed. My biggest regret is not having her transferred out of that emergency room at that time. The reason why is because she was so hooked up to different lines and receiving treatment that I had no idea that was even a possibility. They were giving her electrolytes and insulin and taking vials of blood out of her leg every 2 hours for testing. Since the vet had told me that she was stable and being fed on the feeding tube, I went home that night feeling better about Stella's progress, but feeling very uneasy about this emergency room and how Stella was being cared for. I continued to be full of anxiety. The next day, I made Stella some steamed scallops and shrimp since those had been her favorite foods recently. I also brought her a variety of different canned foods to try, some Temptations, some dry cat food. I was hopeful that maybe she would want to eat something. I got to the emergency room around 12:30 p.m. and immediately noticed that the staff was completely different from the staff that had been there the previous 2 days. While the previous staff seemed kind and somewhat professional, this staff seemed cold, uncaring, rude, and dismissive. Stella was in the same cage that I had left her in the night before, but today she had a different cat bed and her blanket from home was missing. One of the vet techs came up to me and told me that Stella wasn't doing well because her electrolyte levels had changed and she had peed on herself instead of using the litter box. So they shaved the fur on her stomach and hind legs instead of having her sit in urine. There was a small litter box in her cage with one tiny layer of what looked like newspaper pellet litter on the bottom. I told them that she probably didn't use the litter box because she doesn't think there's any litter in it, and I asked them if I could bring in some of the litter that Stella uses at home. Also, they had her right hind leg in like a cast with a catheter attached where they were drawing her blood for the blood tests. So Stella had massive mobility issues as far as moving around with her leg like that. She also had the feeding tube in her nose and another line for the fluids in her neck. So all of that, along with the fact that she didn't have litter in the litter box, made it very obvious as to why she was peeing in the cage. What I did not understand and what I thought was incredibly cruel was that the vet tech took it upon herself to shave a large portion of Stella's body instead of cleaning her properly. Also, I did not like the attitude that the vet tech had when she was explaining this to me, because it was like she was mad at Stella. Like, what's wrong with your cat that she would pee in the cage instead of the litter box? Like, I can't even tell you what a nasty attitude this person had. I then asked about Stella's feeding tube and was shocked when they told me that they had stopped it since they wanted to see if she would eat on her own. They said they had given her an appetite stimulant and I could try to feed her some of the food that I brought in. I asked them how much food she had eaten that day and was not given an answer. They literally did not answer me. None of that made any sense, again, because I brought Stella in because she wasn't eating and because she had been losing weight and been super finicky with her food. Why on earth would they stop her feeding tube and give her an appetite stimulant? It makes no sense. I noticed there was a young male vet speaking to someone on the phone about Stella, who he was consulting with about her case and her required fluids. It was the first time I had visited Stella that I had not been greeted by the vet in charge and updated about her case from the vet. It was as if this vet was avoiding me. And I could not believe how much time he was spending on the phone to whoever he was talking to about what he needed to do. To me, that was a red flag that he was incompetent. I tried to get Stella to eat some of the food that I had brought in with me, but she had no interest in it. I noticed that if I put a little bit of food on my finger, I could put the food in Stella's mouth and she would eat it. She would never let me do something like that at home without putting up a very strong and messy fight. I had tried to syringe feed her a few times during the days when she wasn't eating well, and it was impossible to get her to eat anything that way. She would spit the food out of her mouth and fight every second of me trying to feed her. We would end up with food splattered everywhere and none of it in her mouth. However, this time in the hospital, it seemed like she would be agreeable to it, so I asked the vet tech if I could have a syringe to syringe feed her. The vet tech reminded me that they stopped the feeding tube to see if she would eat. I told her she wasn't eating, and I wanted to see if she would take some food if I put it in her mouth with the syringe, since she was eating it off of my finger. Once again, with an attitude, she said she would see what she could do. Meanwhile, the vet finally came over to me and he seemed completely overwhelmed by Stella's case and what was needed for her. He told me that there was a lot going on with her and they were trying to figure out her electrolytes. He showed me a piece of paper with math equations written all over it as if to say, look at this, look at all the work I've been doing. It was clear to me that he was in over his head and had no idea what he was doing. I asked him to please reach out to Stella's vet, who is familiar with her history and her case and could provide valuable guidance. I also asked him if it was possible for Stella to get a B12 shot, since I know low B12 levels can cause a lack of appetite, and stress greatly reduces B12 in the body. I also know that many cat rescue groups swear by B12 shots for kittens and cats who are failing to thrive. He said he didn't know anything about it and would have to do some research. I told him that Stella was still under extreme stress and I didn't think she slept at all the entire time she had been there. He said, well, she was sleeping when I came in today. I told him she normally sleeps many hours during the day and also through the night, and it's impossible for her to rest under the current conditions with the noise and the bright lights and the strange people and the large animals. I am so angry right now just thinking about this experience and how horribly Stella was treated that day. It was truly a nightmare. A few minutes later, I walked outside and called my vet and left a message about what was going on in the emergency room. The vet returned my call a short while later, and I spoke to him about everything that had happened there that day. I told him that they had stopped Stella's feeding tube to see if she would eat on her own, which she obviously wouldn't, and that I didn't think the vet on duty was qualified to handle Stella's case because he seemed to have no idea what he was doing. Our vet was concerned and said he would try to make a few phone calls. I went back into the emergency room to see Stella and was given a small syringe from the vet tech who had asked for one. With a holier-than-thou attitude, she told me not to feed her too much, only give her small amounts, and to make sure that she was swallowing it. I didn't say anything but started filling the syringe with some of the baby food that I had brought with me and giving Stella small little amounts through the side of her mouth. She would chew and swallow, so I was very hopeful that she would eat some more. After she had a few milliliters of baby food, I gave her a few milliliters of some canned food and then a few more milliliters. I was giving this to her very slowly since she had not been eating. I was concerned about overfeeding her, so I asked the vet tech how much food she could have, and once again, the vet tech did not respond. I felt like Stella and I were prisoners in this emergency room. During my time there that day, I noticed that they were taking 3 milliliter vials of blood from Stella's leg, what seemed like every hour for testing. I was concerned about how much blood they were taking out of her, and I remember thinking that it was too much and she was not going to have any blood left. I literally thought, oh my God, she's not going to have any blood left. But I didn't say anything because Stella was under their care and I didn't want them to treat her worse than I thought she was already being treated. After I was there for a while, Stella laid down and closed her eyes to rest. Every time that I visited her, I never saw her get a minute of sleep. I took 2 towels and hung them on the front of her cage to make it dark and cozy for her in hopes that she could relax and take a nap. She was in a cage in a very brightly lit room with lots of people coming in and out and strange animals coming in and out and all kinds of loud noise. I wanted to give her any little bit of comfort that I could. I gathered my things and went home. I had 10 other cats that I had to take care of. I needed to scoop litter boxes, refill water bowls, make sure that they had their dinner. I also had work to do, and my goal was to go home, get everything done as quickly as possible, and then get back to the emergency room. I was going to bring a bag of litter for Stella's litter box and a can of higher calorie kitten food to feed her with the syringe. It was then that I got a call from one of the vets from the emergency room. This was not one of the vets who was working that day, but one of the vets from the previous day. She told me that she thought it was best for Stella to be transferred to a specialist and gave me options of 2 different animal hospitals, one of which was the nearby animal hospital that I had previously been to with Stella, Hydrox, and Ditto. I selected that one. She sounded very apologetic on the phone, which immediately made me think that Stella was not doing well. They obviously knew that they were incapable of providing her with the level of care that she needed, which they should have told me when I first arrived there with Stella several days prior. She asked me what time I wanted to transfer Stella to the other animal hospital. Even though Stella was in critical care and hooked up to various tubes, I was supposed to pick her up in her carrier and drive her to the other animal hospital. I told them I would be there around 6:30 p.m. I immediately called Stella's vet to talk to him and left a message on his voicemail. He called me back right after that and told me that he was on hold with the emergency room when I called because he also thought that Stella should be transferred to the other animal hospital where she could get specialized care. I was happy that Stella would be leaving that nightmare of an emergency room, but very concerned about her condition. My anxiety was so high that I was nauseous and completely unable to eat anything. I had an egg sandwich that morning and had been surviving the rest of the day on water and juice. I decided to bring Stella the carrier that she loved to lay in when she was in the living room. Prior to the Christmas season, I had kept it on the floor without a door on it. Sharon had made a plush blanket for it. Stella loved to lay inside of it on that blanket. I would often find her there. I put the door on the carrier and I brought it with me with the blanket that she loved. Stella also loved to lay on my bath towels after I got out of the shower in the morning. She loved the scent of the soap that I used, a frankincense and myrrh Zumbar. That day, I grabbed a hand towel and used that to dry off after my shower so that it would have lots of Stella's favorite scents on it. I wanted to bring it with me earlier in the day, but I'd forgotten it at home. I put that in the carrier also. When I got to the emergency room, Stella was laying in her cage and one of the machines was beeping. I asked the nasty vet tech what that was, and she told me that it was the feeding tube because Stella was just being fed. I went to the front desk to ask for a printout of my bill. When I came back into the emergency room, the vet tech had already placed Stella in her carrier. I asked if Stella still had her tube hookups, and she said yes, but concerned that I was not taking her to the other animal hospital, rudely asked me, "You're going to the other animal hospital, right?" Thinking that I might be running off somewhere with her. It was ridiculous. She was such a bitch. If there was ever a person who that word fitted perfectly, it was her. I kept my mouth shut and continued to be polite. I thanked her for her help as I was lifting up Stella in her carrier. She said, "Good luck." And in my mind, I could hear her say something like, "You're going to need it," as I walked to the front desk. I was concerned about Stella because it was so cold out, only about 30 degrees, and they had shaven off so much of her beautiful fur. Sharon had made a beautiful cover for this carrier, but in my rush to get out the door, I couldn't remember where I had put it. I thought I had put it in or near the carriers in my downstairs storage room, but it was not there. I found a large pet towel that fit over the carrier and cut a slit in the middle so the carrying handle would fit through. I hoped that would keep Stella warm enough. We sat on a bench near the front desk as I waited for a printout of the bill. I opened the door to Stella's carrier to pet her, and she got up and attempted to walk out of it. I petted her head and told her that she had to stay inside and that we would be leaving soon. I think Stella was very happy to be leaving there. It breaks my heart thinking about this horrific experience again. I hope Stella can forgive me for the horrible way she was treated there and the unbearable conditions she had to endure. I put Stella's carrier in the front seat next to me and we made the short drive to the other animal hospital. I told the woman at the front desk that I was there transferring Stella from the vet emergency room. I was immediately greeted by a triage nurse who questioned me about what had been going on with Stella. While I was explaining what we had experienced over the past 3 days, the receptionist became very concerned about Stella. The triage nurse said that Stella looked alert and assured them she was okay. A family with a very large German Shepherd walked in the front door and the dog was barking his head off. After being around so many barking dogs at the emergency room, I was immune to it, but the triage nurse immediately wanted to take Stella to the back of the hospital where it was quiet and where she could be checked out. I was told to have a seat in the waiting room and they would call me when they were ready for me. As I'm typing this, the same anxiety that I felt at the time has once again returned, and I am freezing, shivering, and shaking. The waiting room was very large with comfortable upholstered benches all along the walls and dividers. They have a special area in the waiting room just for their cat patients, which is nice to keep them a distance away from the dogs. I immediately settled into the difference in atmosphere between this waiting room and the previous emergency room. Here it was so quiet and calm and peaceful with soft lighting and muted colors. There it was loud and chaotic and bright with a harsh industrial look. I got up and walked out to my car to see if I could find some ginger candy since I thought it would help with my nausea. I walked back into the waiting room, but someone else was sitting where I'd been sitting, so I moved to another area. I was making myself comfortable when I heard someone looking for who was there with Stella. I said it was me, and she came over to me and explained that Stella was being stabilized. I asked her what was wrong, and she said that her blood pressure had lowered. They wanted to have her stabilized before they called me into the exam room. I asked her how long did she think that would take, and she told me she didn't know. I was exhausted from hardly getting any sleep the previous 2 nights, so I took my purse and I put it on the bench to use as a pillow and laid down on the bench with my head on my purse. It was incredibly comfortable. I closed my eyes and came so close to falling asleep. The only thing that stopped me was the amount of anxiety I was having. It was always at its worst if I was sitting still or standing still. Since I was just laying there, it was really bad. I was cold and shivering the same way that I am right now. I knew I had to make sure I took care of myself so I didn't make myself sick. After all, I still had 10 cats at home that depended on me. I walked over to the front desk and I asked the woman there if they had a vending machine. They said unfortunately they don't, but gave me directions to a nearby pizzeria. I told them that I had so much anxiety I couldn't stomach pizza. One woman asked me if I wanted some goldfish crackers because she thought they had some in their break area. I told her that I didn't think I could even stomach those. I went out to my car and found a large container of coconut water that I had thrown in a bag with a bunch of cat food to bring with me to the emergency room earlier. When I was at home, I was surviving on coconut water mixed with pineapple juice. I also had orange juice, apple cider, and water, and the ginger candies. That's all I could stomach. I went back to the waiting room and once again marveled at how peaceful, soothing, and calm this animal hospital was compared to the hell we had just experienced. It wasn't long before another woman came out looking for who was there with Stella. I followed her to one of the exam rooms and remembered how truly big this animal hospital was. At first, I waited in the exam room with the door open. It was now about 9 p.m. and the office cleaners were vacuuming the hall and nearby rooms. I'd become so immune to the loud noises and open concept of the previous emergency room that I forgot I should shut the door to the room I was in. As soon as I did that, it was quiet and peaceful. I began to pace back and forth because of the anxiety. I could not stand still. Not long after that, a vet came in with her laptop to take down more information about Stella. I told her everything that I'm telling you here now. She diligently took notes. She then talked to me about treatment options. While she was doing that, another vet poked her head in the door to ask for her assistance. The vet at the door must have seen a concerned look on my face. She said, "Don't worry, Stella's fine." The vet returned very quickly and went over the options for Stella with me. She wanted to make sure that I understood that they could not guarantee a positive outcome because of Stella's current condition. She told me that her blood pressure was dropping because she had no blood. She said that she had a very low red blood cell count. I said, but she just had a blood test on Monday and it was fine. She said that it was 33 on Monday and it was now 26, which means Stella was very anemic. I told her about how much blood they had been taking out of Stella almost every hour at the emergency room, and that when I saw that, I literally was thinking that Stella was not going to have any blood left. She said that when testing hourly, they normally don't take enough to make such a big difference, but I explained to her how much blood I saw them taking. The vet went through several pages of various treatment options they could do for Stella, and I was so hopeful that they would be able to get her through this current crisis. She needed to have blood transfusions and other things that the previous emergency room never even mentioned. The vet also wanted to make sure that I understood the costs. I had already spent more than $9,000 at the vet emergency room. She showed me a new estimate that started at $10,000 and went up to $21,000. I agreed to it without hesitation. I told her that I could always make more money, but I could never make another Stella. Stella was priceless to me. The vet then wanted to take me to see Stella since her condition was so fragile. I knew that it was to say my last goodbyes in case she declined overnight. I had never been to that part of this animal hospital before, and I was utterly amazed at how large and professional and well-equipped it all was. This was a real hospital. The emergency room that Stella had been in before she was transferred was a small fraction of the size and nowhere near as well equipped as this animal hospital was. I immediately knew that Stella was in much better hands here and badly regretted not bringing her here instead of the emergency room several days ago. It would have been a completely different course of treatment, and chances would have been so much greater that it would have saved her life. Stella was lying on an exam table. She looked so happy and peaceful with her nose poking into a cup, delivering oxygen to her. She was covered in towels to keep her warm, but I had never seen her so limp and lifeless before. I didn't know what happened to her in the past few hours since I had opened the door to her carrier and she tried to get out of it, but it was a drastic change. I petted her head and told her that I loved her and that she would always be my girl. That's what I called her all the time. I would say, "Stella, you're my girl. It's me and you, Stella. You're my bestie. We're BFFs, right, Stella?" And she loved it. And she was. Stella was my best friend. Because of the Boo Day videos, a lot of people think that Boo and I have a special bond and relationship, and we do. What they don't realize is that my bond and relationship with Stella was just as strong and special. The only difference is that they didn't get to experience it in the same way because I did not film my daily journey with her the same way that I did with Boo. The only reason that I filmed Boo's daily journey is because of Stella. When I started posting videos of her on this channel, I got so many rude and nasty comments about feral cats and their inability to be trained and socialized that when Boo showed up at my back door, all scraped up and in need of help, I knew immediately that I needed to film the entire process from start to finish to teach people. And I did. And we can thank Stella for that. I told Stella that I loved her and that I would see her tomorrow and told her to get some good rest and that they would take really good care of her here, and tried very hard to keep my heart from breaking, knowing that this might be the last time I saw her alive. They showed me the room that she would be staying in, which was full of cages for animals who are receiving treatments. She said it was monitored by staff 24/7 and she would be closely watched. It looked so much nicer than the cages and the room that Stella had previously stayed in. I asked about visiting hours and was told that I would receive a phone call from someone tomorrow to schedule a time when I could come in to see her. The vet also told me that I would receive a call overnight if Stella's condition deteriorated. The vet and I walked back to the exam room. I signed the papers and walked over to billing to pay my deposit. There was an older couple near the billing department and the woman was sobbing uncontrollably. They had been in the waiting room with me earlier and I heard them telling someone that they had a cat there who wasn't doing very well. It's been touch and go, but they wanted to give him a chance. They rescue animals, and this is what they do. They come there very often with lots of different animals. As I was paying the bill, I heard her husband consoling her. It was obvious that the cat didn't make it. I was very concerned for Stella. I got home, and I knew I had to try and eat something, so I made myself half of a bagel with some butter and jam. Every bite that I took turned to sawdust in my mouth. All of the stress and anxiety made my mouth so dry. I was only able to choke down half of the bagel. I went to bed and laid there shivering and shaking. I had found that using a heating pad helped with the anxiety, so I turned a heating pad on and rested it on my stomach. I put some thick socks on and another blanket on top of me. I took a rescue remedy lozenge and some B12 drops. I dabbed some frankincense oil on my neck and forehead and the soles of my feet. I was trying to do anything that I could to relax and get some much-needed sleep. I had been praying for Stella nonstop for the past 3 days. I don't think I ever prayed for anything harder than I prayed for her that night. I kept asking God to heal her with a remarkable recovery, to bless her and show her favor and grace. Being raised Catholic, I called on every angel and saint I could think of. I tried listening to healing meditations to fall asleep. My thirst kept taking over and I kept reaching for the glasses of water and juice on my night table. It was a very rough night. I must have finally fallen asleep around 2 a.m. I was woken by the sound of my phone ringing. I instantly wondered what time it was because the vet last night had told me the vet the next day would be calling me between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. My heart sank when I saw that it was only 5:30. I knew that could only mean one thing. I was told that Stella's condition was declining. Her blood pressure had dropped even lower, and now she was starting to develop fluid around her lungs. I was asked about how I wanted to proceed, and I agreed that it would be best to humanely euthanize her. I hate that word. The woman who called me asked me to hold for a second because they had to document the request with a witness. Once she had the witness, I confirmed my request. They said that she would call me back to let me know that Stella had passed. I called Grandma and Grandpa Farrell to let them know the news because they loved Stella also and were praying for her to pull through. All of my anxiety instantly turned to grief. I was devastated. Around 6 a.m., while I was still on the phone with Grandma Farrell, Splash walked into my room and sat down 4 or 5 feet away from me and started meowing at me. This is something he has never done before. I said, "Hey, Splash." He meowed at me. "Are you okay, Splash?" He meowed again. "What's going on, Splash?" He meowed. He just kept meowing at me. Grandma said that maybe he was sensing Stella or trying to tell me that Stella was okay. 5 minutes later, the animal hospital called back and I told Grandma I had to pick up that call. They told me that Stella had passed and I asked them if they knew what time she had passed. They told me at 5:50 a.m. I thanked them, and they offered me their condolences. I called Grandma Farrell back, and we talked for a while about Stella and what had happened. I went to the kitchen and made a small bowl of applesauce that I was able to slowly eat. Since the anxiety had changed to grief, my stomach was no longer as nauseous as it was. I was definitely not hungry, but I knew that I needed to eat something if I could get it down. I got off the phone and tried to get some more sleep. Splash, Boo, and Simba were all awake and concerned about what was going on. I was very upset, and cats are sensitive to things like that. I felt so bad for Splash and Simba, who no longer had Stella with them as their mom. Splash could no longer cuddle with her the way he loved to do. We all know that Splash is a mama's boy, and we know how Stella loved to bite Simba's butt. They were a close-knit family, and Boo no longer had his girlfriend. Don't forget that Boo is called Boo because Boo was Stella's boo. In an instant, our lives were changed forever. It is now 8:30 p.m. as I am typing the ending of this story. I have laid here on the couch all day with my laptop on my lap, typing away, only taking breaks to stretch my legs, try to eat food, and scoop cat litter. It makes me very sad to think about our loss. Not just my loss of Stella, but every cat in the house has a loss of Stella. Every viewer of this channel has a loss of Stella. At the time that I am typing this, videos of Stella have been seen more than 44 million times on YouTube. She has helped so many people to better understand feral cats and what they are truly capable of. In the past 8 years since I started posting videos of her, the world has become a much nicer place for feral cats. There's still much work to be done, but it is better than it was 8 years ago. And channels like this one help to raise awareness about their intelligence and their abilities. Stella will always be my girl, and I miss my girl so much. She was so much more than just a cat. She was my friend. She was my best friend. She was my daughter. She was Boo's girlfriend. She was Splash and Simba's mom, and she was a big sister to the Lucky Seven. She will always be loved, and she will always be missed. The house feels so empty without her. I miss her warmth, and her charm, and her joy, and her silliness, and her spunk, and her character, and her beauty, and everything about her. Every cat has a unique life and a unique personality, and there will never be another cat like her. There will never be another Stella. My Stella. I love you, Stella, and we all miss you so much.